Tonight, Donald Trump, no holds barred. What does he think about this?
So what do you think of Donald Trump banging on about this every day at the moment?
Well, I think it's a shame. I think that my brother should definitely be president for a second term.
Everybody's talking about him, and tonight I want to give Donald Trump the chance to respond. And speaking of no holds barred, we've also got Whoopi Goldberg.
I don't generally talk about the trapeze in my room, but that's a whole other thing.
Oscar winner, comedian, talk show host, Broadway producer, most importantly, never short of a word or two.
You've become really quite squeaky clean, haven't you?
Well, I still smoke cigarettes. And I don't have a boyfriend.
Tonight, one-on-one with Whoopi Goldberg. This is Piers Morgan Tonight. Donald Trump has been a harsh critic of President Obama and perhaps not coincidentally is tied for the lead in a crowded field of Republican presidential contenders. And Donald Trump joins me on the phone now. Donald, you must be hating this. You're the center of attention.
Well, I really find it to be interesting because, as you know, I've done a great job as a businessman, but I'm not a politician, and maybe that's what's resonating with people. I don't know, but I was happy to see your CNN poll, and frankly, there are other polls that are coming out even more so. So I'm very honored by it, Piers.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I've been following this for a few months now, your slow progression in the poll ratings. Do you get a sense that Washington, D.C. hasn't really taken you seriously? And do you think we're now at the tipping point where they have to?
Well, I always felt that the people took me seriously and very seriously. And if I'd make a speech or if I do a show, I could see that it was really hitting home. And whether I talk about China, whether I talk about OPEC and how they're just absolutely ripping us like nobody's ever ripped us before, how they're, in the case of China and so many other countries, how they are just taking our jobs, taking our money, making our product, manipulating their currency so it makes it almost impossible for our companies to compete. When I say these things, people really get it. You know, the public is very smart, and they do get it.
People have been saying in the last few days, as these ratings have come out, showing you know, basically the equal front runner at the moment for the Republicans with Mike Huckabee. They've been saying, yes, but when Donald Trump gets properly scrutinized, when people rake over, you know, his personal life, over his finances, then it will all come unstuck. What's your answer to that?
Well, you know, I've been very public for many years. And again, I'm not a professional politician. I don't do this for a living. I understand politics. I've dealt with politicians all of my life. I've dealt with foreign countries all my life. I've made a lot of money with China, as an example. And I understand China. I understand the whole mentality, and I understand what they're doing and how they're doing it to us, and I know the solution, perhaps more importantly.
And tell me this, if you do not get the Republican nomination, you have flirted with the idea of possibly running as an independent. Is that a serious option for you?
Well, I don't like the concept because they've done polls and I get huge numbers as an independent, and I'm a very conservative Republican. So unlike other people that would be, let's say, much more liberal in terms of a tag where you take votes away from Obama, I would be taking votes away from the Republican candidate, and I don't want to do that. So it's something I really don't want to do. And, you know, the problem is I get very, very high independent votes. In fact, CNN did a poll where my numbers are even better than they are in the Republican primary as independents. I think you saw that, Piers, where I'm substantially in the lead by many, many points.
And who would you see as potentially your main rivals in the current field?
Everybody. They're all rivals. Everybody. And I really like some of them. Some of them I know. I really like some of them. And it's always a little bit difficult for me to go against people that I like because I can't be the real Donald Trump. It's a little bit difficult. And I will say this, I actually think, and I said it before, that I actually think it's tougher to win the Republican primary than it is to beat Obama, at least for me.
I want to come now to probably the most contentious issue that involves you at the moment, with this whole thing about President Obama, where he was born, the birther scandal, as it's now been dubbed. I want to play you a clip from my interview with the president's sister, which was quite contentious when it came to your involvement in this. There's this whole
I think, ridiculous debate about whether he was born in America. What do you think of that?
I think it's unfortunate. He was born in Hawaii. There is a tremendous amount of proof that has already been presented. The then Republican governor and head of the Department of, Health in Hawaii even attested to the fact that the birth certificate that they inspected was in fact valid. It's in the newspapers on the day of his birth. So I think that it is time for people to put that to bed, put it to rest completely.
What do you think of Donald Trump banging on about this every day at the moment?
Well, I think it's a shame. And I think that my brother should definitely be president for a second term. And that's really all I have to say about it.
I mean, Donald, I'll put my cards on the table here. I kind of think you've run up as far up this flagpole as you can. I mean, doesn't there come a point where you have to accept that nothing else is going to emerge on this story and you have to let it go?
Well, I think you're totally wrong, and I was surprised at your statement that, frankly, you don't agree with it because you're supposed to be a great reporter, and if I were a reporter, I'd be all over this. I think that his sister is lovely, I have to tell you. I watched the interview last night. I thought she was a beautiful woman with a beautiful voice, and I just thought she was a lovely person, and I watched it. I thought it was an excellent interview, and I'm sure he's very proud of her. The fact is, he doesn't show his birth certificate. He shows a certificate of live birth, which is a much lower standard. He's not showing his birth certificate.
Donald, let me ask you directly here, because I don't agree with you on this issue, and I have huge respect for you, as you know. But on this issue, do you actually believe that President Obama wasn't born in Hawaii? Do you personally believe that?
I think there's a substantial chance. And I will tell you, when I first started on this about a month and a half ago, I had heard this issue for years. By the way, 70% of the Republican Party thinks that maybe, in fact, it's actually higher, it could be 75%, that maybe he wasn't, and about 30% think that he was not born here.
Finally, Donald, I mean, today President Obama came out with this huge new fiscal plan involving cutting trillions of dollars off the deficit. What was your take on it when you read the detail?
Well, I think it's terrible for a lot of reasons, including the fact that you're talking about big tax increases. You're talking about the interest deduction on real estate and people's homes, where they're losing a big chunk of it. What's that going to do to the home market, which is devastated already? And, when it goes good, there's nothing that creates more jobs like the home market with the real estate. And you're taking away a big chunk of the deduction. The automatic trigger is brutal. And charitable giving is going to be hurt very badly because you're taking away the incentives, at least from a financial standpoint, to do charitable giving. So there are a lot of negatives. And also the number, with all of that said, the number is so small that it won't make enough of a dent in the deficit.
Well, Donald Trump, I certainly think it would be most entertaining, at the very least, if you enter this campaign. And I think a lot of people are waiting with bated breath, and they're watching your poll numbers going up all the time. And I'd imagine, as you have said, there is mounting fascination at the White House as to whether you will run or not. So thank you for joining me tonight, and we'll watch this space.
Thank you very much, Piers.